Chapter 8. Coll Ohmsford was a prisoner at Southwatch for 8 days before he discovered who had locked him away. His cell was the whole of his world, a room 20 feet square, high within the black granite tower, a stone and mortar box with a single metal door that never opened. A window closed off by metal shutters, a sleeping mat, a wooden bench, and a small table with 2 chairs. Light filtered through the shutters in thin grey shafts when it was daytime, and disappeared when it was night. He could peer through the cracks in the shutters and see the blue waters of the Rainbow Lake and the green canopy of the trees. He could catch glimpses of birds flying, cranes and terns and gulls, and he could hear their solitary cries. Sometimes he could hear the howl of the wind blowing down out of the room through the canyons that channeled the Myrmidon. Once or twice he could hear the howling of wolves. Cooking smells reached him now and then, but they never seemed to emanate from the food that he was fed. His food came on a tray, shoved through a hinged flap at the bottom of the iron door, a furtive delivery that lacked any discernible source. The food was consumed and the trays remained where he stacked them by the door. There was a constant humming sound from deep beneath the castle, a sort of vibration that at first suggested huge machinery, then later something more akin to an earth tremor. It carried through the stone of the tower, and when Coll placed his hands against the walls, he could feel the stone shiver. Everything was warm, the walls and floor, the door and window, the stone and mortar and metal. He didn't know how that could be, with the nights sometimes chill enough to cause the air to bite, but it was. Sometimes he thought he could hear footsteps beyond his door, not when the food was delivered, but at other times when everything was still, and the only sound was the buzz of insects in the distant trees. The footsteps did not approach, but passed on without slowing, nor did they seem to have an unidentifiable source that might as well easily come from below or above as without. He could feel himself being watched, not often, but enough so that he was aware. He could feel someone's eyes fixed on him, studying him, waiting perhaps. He could not determine from where the eyes watched. It felt as if they watched from everywhere. He could hear breathing sometimes, but when he tried to listen for it, he could hear only his own. He spent most of his time thinking, for there was little else to do. He could eat and sleep. He could pace his cell and look through the cracks and the shutters. He could listen. He could smell and taste the air. But thinking was best. He found an exercise that kept his mind sharp and free. His thoughts, at least, were not prisoners. The isolation he experienced threatened to overwhelm him, for he was closed away from everything and everyone he knew, without reason or purpose that he could discern, and by captors that kept themselves carefully hidden. He worried for Pa so greatly that at times he nearly wept. He felt as if the rest of the world had forgotten him, had passed him by. Events were happening without him. Perhaps everything he once knew had changed. Time stretched away in a slow, endless succession of seconds and minutes and hours and, after a while, days as well. He was lost in shadows and half-light and near silence, his existence empty of meaning. Thinking kept him together. He thought constantly of how he might escape. The door and window were solidly seated in the stone of the fortress tower, and the walls and floor were thick and impenetrable. He lacked even the smallest digging tool in any event. He tried listening for those who patrolled without, but the effort proved futile. He tried catching sight of those who delivered his meal, but they never revealed themselves. Escape seemed impossible. He thought as well about what he might do to let someone know he was there. He could force a bit of cloth or a scrap of paper with a message scrawled on it through the cracks in the shutters of the window. But to what end? The wind would likely carry it away to the lake or the mountains, and no one would ever find it, or at least not in time to make any difference. He thought he might yell, but he knew he was so far up and away from any travellers that they would never hear him. He peered at the countryside unfailingly when it was light and never saw a single person. He felt himself to be completely alone. He turned his thoughts finally to envisioning what was taking place beyond his door. He tried using his senses, and when that failed, his imagination. His captors assumed multiple identities and behavioral patterns. Plots and conspiracies sprang to life, fleshed out with the details of their involvement of him. Barr and Morgan, Padishah Creel and Damson Ree, dwarves, elves and Southlanders alike came to the Black Tower to free him. Brave rescue parties sailed forth, but all efforts failed. No one could reach him. Eventually, everyone gave up trying. Beyond the walls of Southwatch, life went on, uncaring. After a week of this solitary existence, Coll Ohmsford began to despair. Then on the 8th day of his captivity, Rimadol appeared. It was late afternoon, grey and rainy, stormy clouds low and heavy across the skies, lightning a wicked spider's web flashing through the crease, thunder rolling out of the darkness in long, booming peals. The summer air was thick with smells brought alive by the damp, and it felt chill within Coll's cell. They stood close against the shuttered window, peering out through the cracks in the fittings, listening to the sound of the Myrmidon as it churned through the canyon rocks below. When he heard the lock on the door to his room release, he did not turn at first, certain that he must be mistaken. Then he saw the door begin to open, caught sight of the movement out of the corner of his eye, and wheeled about instantly. A cloaked form appeared, tall and dark and forbidding, lacking face or limbs, seemingly a wraith come out of the night. Coll's first thought was of the Shadow One, and he dropped into a protective crouch, frantically searching his suddenly diminished cell for a weapon with which to defend himself. "Don't be frightened, Veilman," the wraith soothed in an oddly familiar whispery voice. "You are in no danger here." The wraith closed the door behind and stepped into the room's faint light. Coll saw, by turns, the black clothing marked with a white wolf's head, the left hand glove to the elbow, and the raw-boned narrow face with its distinctive reddish beard. Rimadol. Instantly, Coll thought of the circumstances of his capture. He had gone with Pa, Damson, and the mole through the tunnels beneath, Tursus in the abandoned palace of the old city's kings, and from there the Ohmsford brothers had gone on alone into the pit in search of the missing sword of Shannara. He had stood guard outside the entry to the vault that was supposed to contain the sword, keeping watch while his brother went inside. It was the last time he had seen Pa. He had been seized from behind, rendered unconscious, and spirited away. Until now he had not known who was responsible. It made sense that it should be Rimadol, the man who had come for them weeks ago in Varfleet and hunted them ever since, across the length and breadth of the Four Lands. The first seeker moved to within a few feet of Coll and stopped. His craggy face was calm and reassuring. "Are you rested?" "That's a stupid question," Coll answered before he could think better of it. "Where's my brother?" Rimadol shrugged. "I don't know. When I last saw him, he was carrying the sword of Shannara from its vaults." Coll stared. "You were there?" Inside? No, I was. And you let Pa take the sword of Shannara? You just let him walk away with it? Why not? It belongs to him. You want me to believe, Coll said carefully, that you don't care if he has possession of the sword, that it doesn't matter to you? Not in the way you think, Coll paused. So you let Pa go, but you took me prisoner. Is that right? It is. Coll shook his head. Why? To protect you, Coll laughed. From what? Freedom of choice? From your brother. From Pa. You must think me the biggest fool who ever lived. The man folded his arms across his chest comfortably. To be honest with you, there is more to this than just offering your protection. You are a prisoner for another reason as well. Sooner or later, your brother will come looking for you. When he does, I want another chance to talk with him. Keeping you here assures me that I will have that chance. What really happened, snapped Coll angrily, is that you caught me, but Pa escaped. He found the sword of Shannara and slipped past you somehow, and now you're using me as bait to trap him. Well, it won't work. Pa's smarter than that. Rimadol shook his head. If I was able to capture you at the entrance to the vault, how is it that your brother managed to escape? Answer me that. He waited a moment, then moved over to the table with its wooden chair and seated himself. I'll tell you the truth of things, Coll Ohmsford, if you'll give me a chance. Will you? Coll studied the other's face wordlessly for a moment, then shrugged. What did he have to lose? He stayed where he was standing, deliberately measuring the distance between them. Rimadol nodded. Let's begin with the Shadowin. The Shadowin are not what you have been led to believe. They are not monsters, not wraiths, whose only purpose is to destroy the races, whose very presence has sickened the four lands. They are victims for the most part. They are men, women, and children who possess some measure of the fairy magic. They are as a result of man's evolution through generations in which the magic was used. The Federation hunts them like animals. You saw the poor creatures trapped within the pit. Do you know what they are? They are the Shadowin, whom the Federation has imprisoned and starved into madness, changing them so that they have become worse than animals. You saw as well the woodswoman and the giant on your journey to Cullhaven. What they are is not their fault. The gloved hand lifted quickly as Coll started to speak. Valeman, hear me out. You wonder how it is that I know so much about you. I will explain if you will just be patient. The hand came down again. I became first seeker in order to hunt the Shadowin, not to harm or imprison them, but to warn them, to get them to safety. That was why I came to see you in Varfleet, so that your brother and you were protected. I did not have the chance to do so. I have been searching for you ever since to explain what I know. I thought that you might return to the Vale, and so I placed your parents under my protection. I believed that if I could reach you first, before the Federation found you in some sort of other way, you would be safe. I don't believe any of this, Coll interjected coldly. Rimadol ignored him. Valeman, you have been lied to from the beginning. That old man, the one who calls himself Cogline, told you the Shadowin were the enemy. The Shade of Elanon warned you at the Hailstorm in the Valley of Shell that the Shadowin must be destroyed. Retrieve the lost magics of the old world, you were advised. Find the sword of Shannara. Find the missing Elfstones. Find lost Paranor and bring back the Druids. But were you told what any of this would accomplish? Of course not. Because the truth of the matter is that you are not supposed to know. If you did, you would abandon this business at once. The Druids care nothing for you, and your kin, and never have. They are interested only in regaining the power they lost when Elanon died. Bring them back, restore their magic, and they will again control the destiny of the races. This is what they work for. Coll Ohmsford. The Federation unwittingly, ignorantly helped them. The Shadowin proved the perfect victim for both to prey upon. Your uncle recognized the truth of things. He saw that Elanon sought to manipulate him, to induce him to undertake a quest that would benefit no one. He warned you all. He refused to be part of the Druid's madness. He was right. The danger is far greater than you realize. He leaned forward. I told all of this to your brother when he came into the vault after the sword of Shannara. I was waiting there for him. Had been waiting, in fact, for several days. I knew he would come back for the sword. He had to. He couldn't help himself. That's what having the magic does to you. I know. I have the magic too. He stood up suddenly, and Coll shrank back in alarm. The black-clad body began to shimmer in the gloom as if translucent. Then it seemed to come apart, and Coll heard himself gasp. The dark form of a Shadowin lifted slowly out of Rimadol's body. Red eyes glinting, hung suspended in the air for a moment, and settled back again. The first seeker smiled coldly. I am a Shadowin, you see. All of the seekers are Shadowin. Ironic, isn't it? The Federation doesn't know. They believe us ordinary men, nothing more. Men who serve their twisted interests, who seek as they do to rid the land of magic. They are fools. Magic isn't the enemy of the people. They are. And the Druids. And any who would keep men and women from being who and what they must. One finger pointed at Coll like a dagger. I told this to your brother. And I told him one thing more. I told him that he, too, is a Shadowin. Ah, you still don't believe me, do you? But listen now, Pa Ohmsford is in truth a Shadowin. Whether either of you cares to admit it or not, so is Walkabow, so is anyone who possesses real magic. That's what we are, all of us, Shadowin. We are sane, rational, and for the most part, ordinary men, women, and children, until we become hunted and imprisoned and driven mad by fools like the Federation. Then the magic overwhelms us, and we become animals, like the woodswoman and the giant, like the things in the pit. Coll was shaking his head steadily. No, this is all a lie. How is it that I know so much about you? Do you think? Rimadol persisted, his voice maddeningly calm. Even now, I know all about your flight south, down the Myrmidon, your encounters with the woodswoman and the old man, how you met with that Highlander and persuaded him to join you, how you journeyed to Gullhaven, then to Hearthstone, and finally to the Hailstorm. I know of the dwarves and Walkabow. I know of your cousin Wren Ohmsford. I know of the outlaws and Padishah Creel, and the girl and all the rest. I knew when you were going down into the pit and tried to have you stop. I knew that you would return and waited there for you. How, Valman? Tell me. A spy in the outlaw camp, Coll answered, suddenly unsure. Who? Coll hesitated. No, I don't know. Then I will tell you. The spy was your brother. Coll stared. Your brother, though he didn't realize it. Pa is a Shadowin, and I sometimes know what other Shadowin think. When they use their magic, my own responds. It reveals to me their thoughts. When your brother used the wish song, it let me know what he was thinking. That was how I found you. But Pa's use of the magic alerted others as well. Enemies. That was why the Gnoll tracked you and the Wolfskag and the spider gnomes at Hearthstone. Think, Valman, all that has befallen you has been the result of your own doing. I did not seek to harm you in Tircis. It was Pa's decision to go down into the pit that brought you to grief. I did not withhold the sword of Shannara. Yes, I kept it hidden, but only to force Pa to come to me so that I might save him. Coll stiffened. What do you mean? Rimadol's pale eyes were intense. I told you that the reason I brought you here was to protect you from your brother. I spoke the truth. The magic of a Shadowin is as two-edged as any sword. You have surely thought the same thing many times. It can be either salvation or curse. It can work to help or to hurt, but it is more complicated than that. A Shadowin can be affected by the stresses that use of the magic demands, particularly when he is threatened or hunted. The magic can go frayed. It can escape. Remember the creatures in the pit? Remember those you encountered on your travels? What do you think happened to them? Your brother has the wish song as his magic, but the wish song is only a thin shell covering the magic that lies beneath. A magic more powerful than your brother imagines. It begins to grow stronger as he runs and hides and tries to keep himself safe. If I do not reach him in time, if he continues to ignore my warnings, that magic will consume him. A long silence followed. Coll reflected silently. He remembered Pa telling him that he believed that the magic of the wish song was capable of doing much more than creating images, that he could feel it seeking a release. He remembered the way it had responded during their first venture into the pit, casting a light through the gloom, illuminating the scroll of the vault. He thought of the creatures trapped there, become monsters and demons. He wondered, just for an instant, if Rimadol might not be telling him the truth. The first seeker came forward for a single step and stopped. Think about it, Coll Ohmsford, he suggested softly. He was big and dark against the gloom, and frightening to look at, but his voice was reassuring. Reason it through. You will have time enough to do so. I intend that you remain here until your brother comes looking for you, or he uses his magic. One way or the other, I have to find him and warn him. I have to protect you both and those with whom you will eventually come in contact. Help me. We must find a way to reach your brother. We must try. I know you don't believe me now, but that will change. Coll shook his head. I don't think so. Outside, distant and low, thunder rumbled and faded in the hissing of the rain. So many lies have been told to you by others, Rimadol said. In time, you will see. He moved back toward the cell door and stopped. You have been kept in this room long enough. You may leave during the day. Just knock on the door when you wish to go out. Go down to the exercise yard and practice with the weapons. Someone will be there to help you. You should have some training. You need to learn better how to protect yourself. Make no mistake though, you cannot leave. At night you will be locked in again. I wish it could be otherwise, but it cannot. Too much is at stake. He paused. I have a short visit to make. A journey of several days. Another requires my attention. When I return, we will talk again. He seemed to consider Coll for a long moment, as if measuring him for something, then turned and went out, the way he had come in. Coll watched him go, then walked back to the shuttered window and stood looking out again into the rain. He slept poorly that night, plagued by dreams of dark things that bore his brother's face. Haunted when he came awake by what he had been told. Nonsense was his first thought. Lies. But his instincts told him that some part of it, at least, was true. And that in turn suggested the unpleasant possibility that it might all be part, a shadowing, the magic, a weapon that could destroy him, both of them threatened by dark forces beyond their understanding or control. He no longer knew what to believe. When he woke, he rapped on the door. A black cloaked seeker released him and walked him down to the exercise yard. Another, a gruff fellow with a shaven head and not scars all over him, offered to spar with him. Using padded cudgels, they trained through the morning. Coll sweated and strained. It felt good to make use of his body again. Later, alone in his cell, the afternoon clearing as the clouds thinned and sunshine broke through to the distant south, he evaluated his new situation. He was a prisoner still, but not so much. He was no longer confined to a single room. He had been offered the means to stay fit and strong. He did not feel as threatened. Whether or not Rimadol was playing mind games with him remained to be seen, of course. In any case, the first seeker had made a mistake. He had given Coll Ohmsford the opportunity to explore Southwatch, and the further opportunity to find a way to escape.